Bank of Ghana has indicated that measures instituted to turn around its finances is already yielding results. The bank posted about 61 billion cedis loss for last year, pushing it into negative equity. Dr. Philip Abredwotu is Director of Research at the Central Bank and has been speaking on PM Express Business Edition.
Well, so we need profits, first and foremost, to run our operations at the Bank of Ghana. And the operations at the Bank of Ghana are very huge, massive operations that we are involved in to ensure that the economy runs well. And also, we need that to deliver on a monetary policy mandate. That mandate is inflation. That mandate requires that we always ensure that there is optimum liquidity in the economy for economic activity so that it doesn't generate inflationary pressures. And in that process, we try to absorb those excess liquidity that we see on the market that can cause economic noise to the fundamentals. Now, that process of withdrawing liquidity from the system costs money. We need to pay interest on these instruments that we take out from the system. It's an expense on our balance sheet item. And therefore, we need income to be doing all these things to ensure stability in the economy. We are a public institutions body, BoG, by the nature of the things we do. It's a public institution policy body. And therefore, we need resources to be able to do that. So basically, that's what we do.
I get it, because my concern was the fact that per your entity, does your regulations and your laws allow you to post profit and loss? Because cast back to 2021, you made some profit as I think 1.2 billion Ghana cedis.
But not necessarily 2021, but if you go back all the way through to 2016, 17, I think one of those years, whether it was 2016 or 17, was when we made a loss. But since then, we've been making profits every year. The last one was last year. We made about 1.23 billion.
That was 2021, yeah.
Yeah, 2021, yes. Well,
but that was what I was trying to get the understanding about, the fact that where lies this entity regulating the financial space, and even the bit about making profit, the bit about making loss and all the rest, and whether that could also cloud or affect your mandate in promoting financial stability in the space.
Well, but George, if you look upstairs on our balance sheet on the asset side, we do make income from some activities.
Like fines and all the rest.
Well, like fines, but those
trading in gold and all the rest and all those.
Yeah, those are part of the story. But we do have reserves offshore with correspondent banks. We have investments in instruments offshore. We are buying U.S. treasuries. We are making income from that side as well. So we do make income, yes, from our activities. And then again, on the downside, we do have liabilities. And at the end of the year, these things do offset each other. And then we end up with either we've made a profit or we've made a loss.
So in the case where you made a profit, does it everything goes to the shareholder being the government?
Well, the law requires that when you make a profit, you need to first distribute these profits. There's a way the distribution is done, and then the rest goes to the government of Ghana.
So in the case where you have made this record loss, what happens? Because that also has an impact on your operations going forward. But just to get the understanding that now that there is a loss, it means that those incomes that should have been distributed, and what happened, there wouldn't be any dividend payment. And those are the first things that will happen because of what has happened to your operation in terms of the loss.
So this time there's a loss.
Yeah.
Do we transfer that loss to somebody?
That could be a question that would be asked to someone.
Yeah. But the law talks only about the profit side. The law is silent on what happens when there's a loss. But when there's a loss, well, the central bank will then have to work to rebuild that loss back. We recall in 2016 or 2017 when we made that loss, we quickly built that loss back. Nobody paid attention because probably it was not as huge as what we are seeing today. So there's been a loss. The question is, we just need to put in place strategies and actionable steps to ensure that we recover this loss. George, on the 25th of July, I think the Bank of England posted a statement, and the Bank of England was saying that government will have to give the Bank of England, that is the government of Ghana, the government of the UK, will have to give the central bank, that is the Bank of England, 150 billion pounds sterling. This was the loss that the Bank of England had made on their books in 2022. Maybe the laws in UK allows such losses to be transferred to government, and maybe that is
the same to be applied here in Ghana.
Oh, I don't want to go there. I'm not too conversant with what the law says. I'm only conversant with the positive side when there's a profit.
But Doc, some would argue that aren't we comparing apples and oranges here? In terms of the economy in England, the bank of maybe the Reserve Bank in US and even other markets. Can we even look at our peers? And now that you have posted this loss, Nigeria, Gambia, Ivory Coast, what is the practice there when we try to argue that, listen, other markets like Bank of England and the other developed economies have had this challenge?
Well, but George, the question you need to be asking yourself is, have those countries, our peers, gone through such a humongous domestic debt exchange?
No.
The domestic debt exchange was huge. But George, one thing we knew when the domestic debt exchange was being done was it was potentially taken from people almost about 25 billion Ghana cedis in terms of cash liquidity. This is what the domestic debt exchange was doing to agents in the economy. And maybe that is why we saw all this resistance. It's taking money away from the people. So when you talk about our peers, are they reporting profits? Are they reporting losses? Have they gone through a domestic debt exchange? So each country has its own peculiar economic characteristic. And our characteristic was that this is an economy that was moving, that had debt problems, that had physical challenges, that had to undergo a debt restructuring to secure an IMF program. And this is the result that we had. So a huge domestic debt exchange on the people, and the Bank of Ghana has been part of the domestic debt exchange. What we've done is to act as the last shock absorber for the entire debt exchange. And this is where the last buck stops.
In your normal banking regulations supervising the banks, you often will raise issues about the level of exposure of a bank. Do you think that also the time has come, looking at the loss that you have recorded, the time has come to take a second look at your loss in terms of your exposure to the government of Ghana?
I would have been worried if this level of losses had been persistent or staying on our books for the past 3, 4, 5 years.